You're listening to the Black Eagles Podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru attı. Tümer gitti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 194 of the Black Eagles Podcast. I am your host, Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City, as always. Kind of unseasonably warm fall evening, or I guess night, here in the city. We have a lot to get into here. A lot of fantastic guests and interviews and cameos and so much to get into here. Of course, there's no football. We had the international break. I guess I could very briefly mention that we had two international, national team matches. The Turkish national side drew 1-1 against Norway. And on this national side, it's probably worth noting that there was only one Besiktas selection, that being Ridvan Yilmaz. He would not feature against Norway at all. And against Latvia, he would come in the 65th minute. And he would actually, in my opinion anyway, be very important in a turnaround. When he came into the match, Turkey was losing 1-0 in Riga, Latvia. After he came on, they scored twice, won the match, salvaged their whole World Cup qualifying campaign, potentially. Things need to go their way elsewhere, but Besiktas, what am I talking about? The Turkish national side,
Operation is in effect as of right now.
Sort of clearly in third place now with 15 points, 2 points behind Norway and 4 points behind the Netherlands, with 2 matches to go. Probably worth noting that Turkey only has remaining Gibraltar on Saturday, November 13th, and Montenegro on the road on Tuesday, November 16th. So games that they should win, but there's no guarantees in football, especially with this national side. Although I guess it's worth noting that beating Latvia was a pretty serious task. It had been quite a while since they had done it last. I believe something like 70 years since they'd managed to get a win against Latvia. So, that's exciting, I guess. Congratulations to the Turkish national side. Now, let's talk Besiktas, and let's talk the Black Eagles Podcast, and of course our episode this week. So like I said, no Besiktas to talk as far as results or anything in the past. But we do have, of course, some exciting stuff to get into here. We are previewing Sporting Lisbon, or Sporting Clube de Portugal, a Lisbon side. We've got a lot of fantastic guests to sort of get their input on Sporting and what we can expect. I got 2 separate interviews. One with Os Panenka's Joao Blanco, at Joao Blanco SCP, Joao Blanco SCP. Very knowledgeable sporting pundit, if you will, doing a podcast. Os Panenka is a Portuguese podcast, and it's sort of split up between the big sides in Portugal, Benfica, Sporting, and Porto, and each host sort of represents one of them. So he's the Sporting representative over there. And then after that, we're going to get into the Sporting 160_EN fellas. And of course, that's going to be the second. And I separated it. I just did it in chronological order. I had interviewed Joao first, and then these guys second. I actually think the Sporting 160 EN podcast has a it's better directed to you guys. It's an English language podcast. But on Twitter, either account's fine to follow because you can translate, obviously. But so yeah, they're an interesting podcast. All the hosts are from English-speaking countries. I would manage to get on the podcast Danny and Christian. And yeah, we'll get into their Twitter stuff and all that when we get to that interview. But so, in addition, in previewing our upcoming match against Başakşehir, I spoke with Aaron Armstrong. I got him to do a hashtag Ask Aaron segment where he would answer one of my big questions going into this match upcoming, which is, how do we feel about our 17 points thus far in the season and third place? And I think we share the same feelings for the most part. But yeah, it'll be great to hear from Aaron and obviously from our guests. So without further ado, let me just dive right in. So first, like I said, we have Os Panenka's Joao Blanco. Black Eagles podcast listeners, a great interview lined up for us today. We're going to get informed all about Sporting Lisboa, Sporting Lisbon, or Sporting Club de Portugal, rather.
Yes, that's good.
Sorry.
That's better.
And I've got a great expert as usual, Joao Blanco, who is from the Os Panenka Podcast. And I guess could kind of briefly tell us a little bit about yourself. We're gonna obviously talk about you and your podcast at the end, so you can plug it and all that. But where are you? How long have you been a Sporting fan? Your podcast. Yeah. You mentioned it's not just a Sporting podcast, right?
Yes. I can talk about it just a little bit now. So, like you said, I am Joao. I live in Lisbon, and I've been a Sporting fan ever since I was born, because I also live near the stadium, very near the stadium. And my family is all Sportingista. That's what we call a Sporting fan. It's a Sportingista. And they taught me to love Sporting. And then as I grew up, I also got involved in the club and with the philosophy of the club, and I loved it all. So now I don't think I'm an expert, as you said it, but I really love Sporting, and I go to every game that we play in Alvalade Stadium, in our stadium, and Sporting is also very well known for playing other sports like futsal, hockey, basketball, and I also go to that type of sports in our. It's not a stadium. I don't know how do you call it, but it's a pavilion. That's what we call here. That's a specific place where you can play these other sports, handball too, and I like to go to those.
Like a sporting center, or
yes, the sporting center. It's not quite okay. You can say it's a sporting center,
sort of like an arena. Yeah, I know what you mean.
An arena, yes, an arena. That's it. I wasn't quite catching up with the word, but yes, that's it. And about my podcast, it's a podcast about football. It's spoken Portuguese, obviously, but it's not only about Sporting. For podcasts only about Sporting, you have Sporting 160 or Sporting 160, translating the name. And the interesting thing is that podcast is spoken Portuguese too, but it's there is another podcast called Sporting 160 English, and that is spoke in English. So if you're listening to this podcast because you're a Besiktas fan and you would like to know a little bit better your rival, your opponent, you can always listen to that podcast. But about my podcast, it's about football. It's not about Sporting, because we have a member of Porto and we have a member of Benfica too, and we discuss a little bit of everything: national football, international football. We discuss basically everything that includes this beautiful game.
Does the Porto fan have to sort of sit between you and the Benfica fan and kind of keep your...
No, because obviously we don't hate each other, but we hate each other's clubs basically the same.
Oh, nice. Okay, three-way hatred.
Yes.
It's like us, actually. We're the Besiktas, Fenerbahce, and Galatasaray, right? We have.
Yes, it's kind of.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know. Like, I when I lived in Lisbon, the Benfica and Sporting thing was real, right? But obviously,
Yes.
Porto just wasn't.
It's really intense because like it's in the same city. But if Sporting and Porto were in the same city, it would be
right?
the same.
Yeah,
same
exactly.
thing. Yes.
Yeah. Especially because in recent years, of course, Porto has kind of like taken over the most prominent position. So I think. But Benfica and Sporting are really the historic clubs, right? So that must be kind of annoying for you guys.
No, because Porto is also a very historical club, and Porto nationally have not been that dominant, but they have had like some very good campaigns in the Champions League for the past few years, and that gives a good international image. Of course, they've won against Juve last season, and they went to the quarterfinals in 1922, I think. So it's always good to have a Portuguese club making those types of campaigns.
And of course, the whole
I would rather be Sporting, of course.
Yeah. Well, and you guys are champions, right? So.
Yes, we are
important.
Champions 19 years after, yes.
So let's talk, I mean, we're touching on history now, and what's interesting about our two clubs is we have some shared history, and I mean, obviously more recently, like we purchased Valentin Rosier from you, we'll talk about him in a moment.
Yeah, yes.
Which is an interesting one.
I can talk to you about him, yes.
Yeah, I'm curious, but so quickly first, I want to talk a little history. With specifically, we have two players, and I'm curious, honestly, to know if you guys kind of take credit for their, youth careers, and if you really associate with them. So both of them are kind of, I mean, especially like Quaresma is a club legend for Besiktas, but then there's also Simão, who came. Like almost a decade ago to Besiktas, and he was a fan favorite, but also
Simão
Sabrosa, right? And he's of course famous for his time with Benfica, but I do recall he actually came up through Sporting's academy, right?
I'm going to tell you something. You chose like two horrible names to Sporting fans.
I thought so, because it became famous elsewhere.
I'm going to explain to you something, because Sporting has a very good youth academy that's present. We taught like Ronaldo, Luis Figo, Nani, and other players, but we don't teach very well like being loyal to the club, because there was Ricardo Quaresma who. I don't think he was for many years in our youth system, but he was here and played for us, and I think he started his professional career with us, I think, but then he went to Porto, and he always says that he's from Porto and his heart is in Porto, and we don't like that. And Simão Sabrosa, it was even worse, because like we sold him to Barcelona, like a big club. And we were hoping, another big star of ours going to a big club, and then he returns, but to Benfica, knife in the heart, totally. Because Quaresma Quaresma has an incredible talent, but he kind of flopped. And Simão Sabrosa, he flopped at Barca, but at Benfica he was really, really good. Quaresma in Porto too, but Benfica really like Simão Sabrosa, and that hurts.
Yeah, I thought that's why I asked. I thought it might be. It's
okay.
It's a little different for like Besiktas. We don't have a lot of that with our rivals, but like I remember Emre Belözoğlu, right? He started with Galatasaray. They won the UEFA Cup back then, and then he got sent to like Inter Milan and the Premiership for a little bit. But when he came back to Turkey, he joined Fenerbahce. So Galatasaray is huge rivals. So that was very, very much like the Simão story.
A lot of those cases, like in this season, João Mário, that was like a starter for us last season. He was a starter on the team that was champion. Goes to Benfica, like in summer. That hurt as hell.
Yeah, that's the worst. That's definitely the worst. No, and like speaking of Valentin Rosier, it's a perfect segue. So we got him from you guys. He was like your third string right back.
Yes.
We were desperate for a right back last year, and he ended up being kind of revelation for us. He had a great season. Nobody really expected it. We were all kind of just relieved to have someone who played the position, but kind of nervous about how he would turn out. But so he did really well, and obviously he was a loan, and we had to buy him from you this summer. And so Galatasaray actually almost kind of jumped in and tried to snap him up underneath us. So it would have been a similar story. Kind of different. So now to Rosier, like, what are your guys' thoughts on him? Like, how does a guy go from being a third string right back for you guys to successful with us? That's a little worrisome for us, right?
No, that's not worrying because this is my opinion. This is not the most what the most Sporting fans think, I guess, because I always thought that Rosier had the talent because when he came to Sporting from Nimes, I don't recall the club, but when he came to Sporting, like, he had already been in French national teams like under 21, under 90, and he had talent. But I think he didn't go well here because of two main factors. First, because I think he was a little bit lazy, like in training and in games. Because, he made a great game, but then the next, it wasn't so good because he didn't. He was a little bit lazy. And another, he came here in the season where we were terrible. He came here in the season when we finished the championship in first place, I guess. Yes, it was that. And our coach, we had 4 coaches that season, and none of them were good except for Ruben Amorim, that is our present coach, and it was the last of that season. And our football was bad. Our tactics were passing the ball to Bruno Fernandes and pray a little bit, for him to play, because the tactics were bad, and that, of course, is not good for the players. And I think Rosier could be playing better for us, but the laziness also helped, or in this case, did not help.
Right, yeah, exactly. No, and it could be that experience kind of, it showed him that he needed to put in that effort, and so maybe that's how he turned it around.
Yes, maybe. Because Besiktas and your championship, the Turkish championship, is a very competitive one. And I think it's very good for a player like Rosier being a starter in Besiktas, a team that plays Champions League games. I think that's important.
Yeah, no, and he really, He started out a little slow, but you could see him building in confidence as he, became more a part of the team and a little bit more central to the team. Maybe he wanted that, like, responsibility. But anyway, so I guess let's dig into these sort of pre-formatted questions that I sent. So first of all, Besiktas. Obviously, you've heard the name. You've already been a little complimentary, which is nice. But so, like, fill that out. Like, what's your impression of the club and Turkish football in general?
So, of course, I've heard about Besiktas. I don't know much about the history of the club.
Sure.
Like, you invited me to this because I went to the Ajax podcast, the Ajax English podcast.
Our friends over there.
About Ajax, I knew a little bit about the history, like Johan Cruyff and etc. About Besiktas, I don't know much, but I know you are one of the biggest clubs in Turkey, if not the biggest. Okay. I also... okay, you're the biggest club in Turkey. I also know that you have had for the past few years many players that also played in Portugal, like Ricardo Quaresma, Pepe, Abubakar, Talisca, and now Rosier. And about Turkish football in general, I know that Turkish fans are very passionate. Your ultras give an amazing show during the games, and I think it's awesome. Some people don't like it. I like it. And when I talk Turkish fans, I also include Besiktas fans. Of course, your fans are very passionate, and that's something beautiful for the game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most awesome aspects of our group in general, the whole group, is that we have these clubs that have, like, real fans, right? Like real academies and histories. We're lucky, I think. And we're all fairly even too, which is. We haven't been so lucky yet, but I think we've also both struggled from injuries and stuff.
Yes, too. I think you have like 10 players injured or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. We had like 9 starters out for one game, and four guys off the bench too. It was insane.
No, but you played really well against Dortmund in the first match day. I like to watch that game, but against Ajax is incredible, and with the injuries, it was a little bit difficult.
Yeah, that was crazy. And we had against Ajax, we had 2 18-year-old academy products on our back line as central defenders. It was insane. So I think we're quite lucky to have only allowed 2 goals. And I guess that brings us to you guys now. You also have, of course, the one key injury, and it's almost like having 3 or 4 guys injured because of how important he is. And we're talking about, of course, Pote or Pedro Gonçalves.
Pedro Gonçalves, yes.
So what's the story with him? Is he? I was gonna ask, who, as far as your starting 11 now and how you feel about the new transfers and stuff. I was gonna ask who you thought your best players were, and we could talk about Pedro Porro, right, the Spaniard who just got called up, I think, or Joao Paulinho, or of course, I'm curious about Sarabia, but
yes, I can tell you all about it. So the injury of Pote or Pedro Gonçalves and the injury of one of our center backs, Gonçalo Inácio, that is also really good. And the story of those injuries is quite funny because they were called for the national team in August, both of them. And then they got injured in the same day. So Pote and Gonçalo Inácio in a Portugal training session. And then the Sporting's next game was against Porto. So Porto fans were saying, "Oh, they're faking. They bought the national team, the national medical team, and they're faking the injury so they can play against us." So Pote is injured since then. So I think he's a very good actor.
Yeah.
And
Academy Award.
yes, an Oscar to him, please. Yeah. And Gonçalo Inácio played one game, so 20 minutes of one game that was against Dortmund. Ajax, against Ajax. And then he got injured again. So I think they are both the best actors I've ever seen. So I don't know if there is any Porto fan listening to this, but you guys suck. So,
yeah, I hear that.
So okay, but about our starting lineup. So without Pote and without Gonçalo Inácio, we have been playing with Adan in goal. So then the right wing, Pedro Porro, that is an excellent player. I think it's the best right winger, right back wing that I ever saw in Sporting. It's incredible. What a player. And the call-up for the Spanish national team was well deserved. And then we play with 3 center backs. So Luis Neto, Coates and Fedal. And maybe we play Gaio there or Mateus Reis, but they're not as good. Then at left wing back, so we had Nuno Mendes last season, but then he went to PSG in August.
Yeah, big upgrade for, I guess,
Yes, he was a tremendous player. And we got Vinagre in August, Ruben Vinagre from Wolverhampton. And the first games he was really good, but then he dropped the level a little bit. And against Ajax, it must have been the worst individual game I ever seen in my life, because Anthony made a clown out of him. It was incredible what Anthony did to him. And so now the spot is between Nuno Santos or Vinagre. Nuno Santos is like a front winger, but Ruben Amorim has been playing him like a left back winger. Then in the midfield, the last game we played with 3 midfielders. So João Palhinha, I think it's one of our key players too. João Palhinha is incredible.
Yeah, I
Mateus Nunes, that's like a box-to-box midfielder kind of thing. he carries the ball very good. And Daniel Bragança. So Daniel Bragança has not been a starter for, like, he was not a starter last season. He was not in the beginning of the season, but he was a starter in our last game that we won away against Aroca, 1-2. And Bragança was man of the match, and I think he has to play because he is our most creative player. He's an incredible talent. He also played really well in the under-21 Euro that happened this summer. Portugal lost the final to Germany, I think. And Bragança is a tremendous player, and I think he has to play more, and I think he will play more now. And in front, if Nuno Santos plays left-back winger, so we play with Sarabia and Paulinho. And Paulinho is a player that, by his personality, the fans like, because he's a very nice person, he's a very nice professional. But we thought that we paid for him, so we paid Braga for him like 16 million, and that is already too much for him. But now, a news from today says that we paid 22.9 million. That's a lot for a striker. That he has, like, in this campaign 22 league shots in 8 games, and he scored 1 goal.
Yeah,
in
I was going to say only 1 goal.
shots.
Yikes.
That's too much. So he scored a brace against Ajax, and that was the best game for him in the Sporting shirt. And he helps very much, like, building the plays, and he's a good false nine, a little bit like Tadic was, like, in the 1920 campaign from Ajax. But he has to score more. He lacks finishing, and the striker that we buy for 23 million almost, he has to score more. That's it. So that's our starting 11.
Oh, interesting.
So we have two, like, our 2 positions that should have some kind of signing should be striker, because we have just 2 strikers on our squad that are Paulinho and Tiago Tomás. So Tiago Tomás is a product of our youth system too, and he's a really good player. But he has to have someone, like, to compete with Paulinho. That is a competition, to make him improve. And the other position should be center back, because I'm happy with our center backs, but they are few. We have like 4 center backs that are not, like, adapted from some other position. So I think that we should have bought, like, a 5th center back too.
Yeah, well, us too. to be fair, we're playing 18-year-olds at the moment. Although, granted, I think that's in large part because of injuries. But yeah, I mean, it's actually quite interesting, and I think this is also a good segue to the next question. But we have a lot of similarities, our clubs. Maybe not quite as many injuries, because I think that's pretty unprecedented. But
that's
right.
That's not.
But certainly comparing, like, the significance of some of the guys who have gone down for you. You've been impacted also, and impacted in a way where, currently you're in 3rd place in the standings in Portugal, which is exactly the same as us, ironically. And I think it's probably the same story where you're not...
Just out of curiosity, sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
But who is in 1st place in Turkey? I don't know.
Fenerbahce.
That's
usual.
Bad. That's bad. So.
Yeah, exactly. With Mesut Ozil,
Yes.
I'm not particularly worried about them, honestly. They are lacking pieces. They've gotten lucky. Lots of help from the refs. They just, how it goes.
Like Porte here. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And just like, they went to Europe, so they get all this sort of help from the refs locally. And then they went to Europe and they got just crushed by Olympiacos, like 0-3 at home. And I joked, I guess that's what happens when, I don't think the Turkish refereeing doesn't translate to Europe every time, my friends.
Yeah.
But then 2nd place is Trabzonspor, who are kind of a more interesting team right now. And then us. But similar to you guys, the season's very young. We've actually played fairly well.
Yes.
It's I think we're very much in contention. I think you guys also. I don't think you're sad to be in third place because you're still undefeated. You're still looking very good, right?
Yes.
So I guess what are your thoughts on your form right now, right?
Yes, we are not preoccupied with that situation because Benfica is in first place and he had his first loss of this season last weekend against Portimonense at home. It was kind of upset, and we are not preoccupied because we had 2 draws, okay, but one of against Porto, and we should have won that game because we played much better than Porto, and they made one shot on goal that was it was their goal, and we missed huge opportunities, and then we draw the game. We should have won, and the other one was against Famalicão. That one was a little bit worse, but I'm not preoccupied. I'm not.
Yeah, so kind of almost the same exact boat. So I guess let's keep things rolling. Finally, before we kind of talk about the Champions League more specifically, how would you describe your playing style and your strengths and weaknesses? Now, you mentioned, obviously, weaknesses up front and maybe in the goal, right? Sorry, not goal. On the back line you mentioned.
Yes, okay, don't worry. But in defense, okay. If it's not the trio Fedal, Coates, and Neto. The 3 played really well and really coordinated against Dortmund. Dortmund had 5 disallowed goals for offside. It was not by luck, because they were so coordinated that they made always the Dortmund strikers offside, and that was really good. But our strengths, we are really good with the ball and passing the ball around. For opening spaces, even better if Bragança is playing. Of course. And but our best tactic is using the space behind the opponent's defense. We attack very quickly with our wingers, and that makes us little in transitions. For example. Our weakness may be the lack of creativity in the midfield. Like I was telling you, Palhinha is very good at defending and Matheus Nunes at carrying the ball like a box-to-box midfielder. But our most creative player is usually on the bench and is Daniel Bragança. But as I told you, fortunately, he was on the starting lineup next game and was man of the match, so he must play against BESIKTAS.
Okay, that's a good, I think, analysis there. Yeah, and I mean, obviously you guys have a great team. You're fresh off of a championship, and so, I think this is really, the heart of the Champions League now, right? Because for us, how we play against each other will determine our level of success in the whole competition.
Hopes, yes,
right?
We have to back-to-back games. So
yeah, and it's it, right? Yeah, exactly. Yes. This is it. So I guess on that note, I guess kind of try to go back a couple of games and where you thought you might be going into the Champions League. What were your expectations and hopes, and do you feel like they've been impacted? I mean, I honestly, obviously with Dortmund and Ajax having won twice each, it looks bad for us, right? But on the other hand, it's really just 6 points, right? One match day could suddenly, one of us could be back in it, right? So, I mean, what are your expectations or hopes? So
I thought we could pass in second place for the next phase, before the games, with a draw. But things seem difficult right now. I think that in order to go to the next phase, we must win the 2 games against you. Sorry, BESIKTAS, and then pray for a miracle against Ajax or Dortmund. So I have my hopes quite up, but then we lost 5-1 against Ajax at home.
Yeah, it was a tough intro, huh?
Yes. So we haven't played Champions League football in 4 seasons maybe. I don't know quite exactly, but then that was the best first game ever of a campaign, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was our second biggest loss at home for international football, I guess, and the first is like in 2011 losing 7-1 to Bayern Munich. So yes.
We've been there.
Really
We've
well.
been there, actually. In fact, I think they beat us 8-1 over two legs. But obviously, our match against Liverpool
over 2 legs, we lost 12-1.
Ooh, nice. At least you don't have a Liverpool result like ours, right? Like that's one that people always remember. That kills me.
Yeah. yes.
But so okay, that's yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think our two clubs are kind of approached everything similarly, right? And so it's sort of natural that our clash will sort of determine how everything goes for either one of us. It would be sort of fitting that we split the ties, like we each win one or something, you know, and get nothing out of it. Just given our luck, right?
Yes, like please Ajax and Dortmund draw the or Ajax like crushes Dortmund in the 2 legs, you know, and then we pray that Haaland stays out a little bit longer and let's go.
He's gonna take a break for his big move to Liverpool or Madrid or
exactly.
wherever it might be, right? Take
like
it easy,
stay out a little bit. Yes, like stay out a little bit, drink a cup of tea, sign your contract, take your time.
You got a lot of money coming your way, friend. You know, you gotta gotta read up on how to spend it. You know.
Yes.
But so yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for coming in. This was a perfect length too, actually. So everything about this went well. Thanks for stepping in and teaching us all about sporting.
It was my pleasure. I love talking about sporting and about football, obviously.
Yeah. No, this could be the hopefully we'll have lots of reasons to have you on in the future. You know, maybe we'll see you again somehow next year.
Yes.
But so finally, tell us about like how to find you on Twitter. You know, I don't know if you write also on the side, or you know, you have any side projects relating to football or anything else, I suppose. But you know, how do people find you?
Okay, so people can find me on Twitter like it's Joao Blanco, then SCP from Sporting, like the acronym basically. Mm-hmm. And but I don't do much on Twitter. I just talk about things, so I don't know. But my side projects are just is only the podcast, the Os Panenka Podcast. But it's so okay. If you don't understand Portuguese, you will not understand a word that we say. But we can always follow us on Twitter, like Os Panenka, and like then click the translate button of our mini analysis of the international games, national games of Portugal. If you're interested, I think follow us on Twitter and then try to learn a little bit Portuguese for listening to the podcast.
Yeah, no, Portuguese is a great language. I can't say that I speak it, you know, but I mean, it's funny because like when I got to Portugal, I had learned Spanish previously, like in school and all that. You know,
don't say that you thought like, oh, I know Spanish, so I know Portuguese.
That's what exactly. So I got there. Well, and no, honestly,
we hate that.
The thing that's funny about it was that I didn't think that at all. I knew, you know, especially because I knew like the history of like the movement of Latin languages, and that, you know, Portuguese is actually kind of one of the oldest, you know, it's unique in that sense. So I was prepared to not understand anything, but then driving in, like not talking to anybody, I saw the signs and I thought, oh, I think maybe I can do this, you know. But then as soon as somebody spoke, like you see a word in Portuguese and you think, oh, I know what this means. I could probably speak this language, but then you hear the pronunciation and it's like you just heard something completely different get spoken, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm in way over my head right now. This is not happening. So yeah, it's a great language though. I love the language and the country. So you know, someday we'll have to go check a game out in Lisbon, Joao.
Yes, let's go. Like come here and let's go to a sporting game. It would be my pleasure. Yes.
Yeah, I'll post it on the podcast. Now, anyway, thank you so much for coming on. Really a pleasure having you, and great to get all the info. And yeah, we'll stay in touch. And I'll put all your info for everyone to find you online, obviously, in the description.
Okay, thanks, man.
Thanks so much, man.
Okay, thanks. It was my pleasure, and good luck for the Champions League games.
Except for these 2 matches, right?
Yes,
but generally, I hope you win every other match.
These 2, I hope you lose like 1-0. Okay, that's a small result.
Keep it classy.
But then win against Ajax and Dortmund, and all good for BESIKTAS. I hope you're champions this year.
Yeah, same to you.
Thanks, man.
Have a good one. All right. Excellent info there from our friend of the podcast now, we can say, Joao Blanco. Like I said, at Joao Blanco, BLANCOSCP. And without further ado, let's just keep it rolling, because we just get more and more info. And I don't think that these things really overlap over too much, so it's actually kind of extra informative. So now we're moving on to Sporting 160 English's segment of the podcast. Let's just dive right in. So welcome back, everyone. Of course, our interview portion of the episode, we have some great guests from the Sporting 160 English podcast, or EN. Let me just introduce these guys quickly. So we have Danny and Christian, both kind of locals on my end over here on the East Coast of the United States. But I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. I guess I'll alternate by who goes first. We'll start with you, Danny. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the podcast and your affiliation with Sporting, I guess.
So I'm Danny. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Same time zone at least. But my parents are both Portuguese. My dad was is a big Sporting fan, so sort of just came down through the family lineage, if you will. But just fell in love with the club. I mean, it's easy for us on this side of the world to just pick another club, especially an English club, but couldn't get away from Sporting. That's pretty much my affiliation with the club. It's just, passed down from family.
Nice. All right, we'll move it to you, Christian, and I'll slide the podcast end of the question to you too, if you don't mind.
Sure. So like you said earlier, my name's Christian. Also, in this East time zone from New Jersey. I picked up Sporting on my own, not their familiar lineage. And our podcast, Sporting 160, we have a Canadian, 2 Americans, and a Brit as well.
Nice, there you go.
So we have a lot of English-speaking countries represented, all Sportingistas, all different ages, all for different reasons. We have a very, unique in that sense, have all viewpoints represented on our podcast.
That's cool. That's great. And I was gonna say, sort of stole my thunder there, Danny. No, but astutely, I'll add. It's always cool to meet, especially of course here in the United States, but of course Canada too. I think you guys probably also have a lot of the quote unquote plastics. The guys who just sort of immediately gravitate towards a Man U or Real Madrid or just one of those giant clubs. So it's always cool to meet someone kind of from this time zone who's carved out their own path. So both of you guys, and I mean, it sounds like everyone on your podcast is kind of doing that. Mm-hmm. That's nice.
Yeah, and I mean, with Sam in particular, who's from the UK, it's amazing because he's right there amongst it all, right? He has a legitimate excuse, if you will, to support a Chelsea or something like that in London, but diehard Sporting fan. So
that's cool.
It just proves how big this club is, and even with yourself with BESIKTAS and all that, it just proves that football is bigger than just England and Real Madrid and Barcelona sort of thing.
That's right, and certainly I can't speak for Canada, but I can certainly say that here in the U.S. there's a deficit in coverage of leagues outside of, I mean, pretty much England, to be honest. And if you spend a little extra money, you can get BeIN and get some Ligue 1 And like I think now you're starting to get a little Bundesliga and stuff in there, but you know it's rare that you actually get football televised, especially outside of the Premier League. So yeah, no, we're all like doing that work, right? Like letting the world know that there's more out there than just English football. But no, that's great. I like that stuff. And a lot of our listeners are actually in Turkey and in Europe and stuff. So it's also cool for them to know that we're not all, you know, what they expect of the typical fan over here. Anyhow, let's focus on, of course, our clubs and the huge match that's upcoming. Huge for both of us, I would say, or all of us. What do you guys like? I'm going to skip questions here. I'm throwing you guys a curveball. Just to sort of review what's happened in the Champions League with you guys. Like, what were your expectations coming into this group, and how has it, you know, changed now that you're in the same boat as us, having lost twice already, right? Christian, you go first this time.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So yeah, obviously, what we expected from this group and where we sit after 2 games is not what we expected or where we wanted to be. Being the pot 1 team in this group, obviously, like there was expectations more on us. Honestly, I feel like expectations from, you know, like pundits or people that are just observing, probably would have picked us to go through in second in most like common scenarios, but Sporting has definitely underperformed, definitely disappointed so far, and you know, the upcoming 2 games, you know, we've said, you know, prior on our own podcast, are going to determine Sporting's continuation in Europe, you know, overall, because it's unlikely, I would say, that we'll advance now, having to make up 2 games on those 2 teams, the Dortmund and Ajax.
Yeah, and certainly with Ajax in their form, that's pretty frightening stuff. Danny, you have anything to add to those thoughts?
No, I pretty much agree 1,000%
Cosign.
with what. Yeah, I cosign what Christian's saying 100%. It's disappointing to see where we've come, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, we are fresh in the Champions League too. Like, this is our first campaign in like over, I think, 3-4 years. So yeah, you know, I guess we could have expected it, but yeah, it is. We are disappointed so far, especially the 5-1 loss. That was pretty tough to take.
Yeah, I mean, you minus the 5-1, luckily, but yeah, you're pretty much describing us as well. Like, we've had a few years off from the Champions League. We came in on the flip side though, like with fairly low expectations, I think. But yeah, I mean, also similar positions in the league and everything. We're kind of in similar positions all around. We'll get into that later though. Focusing again on the Champions League thing, and like backtracking a little too, and I'll stick with you again, Danny. Christian had mentioned your guys maybe expecting a second place. Like, what did you guys think of like the group in general, but then specifically of Besiktas? Like, did you know anything about Besiktas going into this? Like, I wonder if we have a reputation. What did you guys? Yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the group, I thought it was a fairly even group. I think I said it on our podcast as well. I can see us very well finishing first, as well as much as I can see us finishing fourth. You know, like we're all quite even in terms of ability. Maybe Dortmund inches it out just a bit more. Ajax, of course, inches it out just a bit more now, especially we see that. The only difference is Ajax and Dortmund, as compared to us two, they do have more experience in the Champions League, so they might be more comfortable with the games, whereas we're both getting thrown into it. My first impressions, I mean, we're obviously well aware of BESIKTAS. You know, we've had some Portuguese players and managers there over the years.
Yep.
Personally, me as a Canadian, you know, I root for BESIKTAS a little bit, as you guys have Hutchinson and Laren.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Currently, these next 2 games, I hope you guys. I mean, in terms of the group right now, I hope you guys did 0 points. I hope you don't mind me saying. But going further, I hope you guys, you know, continue to develop our young Canadians, which is our one young Canadian, our other veteran. So I do like BESIKTAS. My impression of them when we were drawn to them were definitely that they were the team that we should be looking to get 2 victories off, or at least a point and a victory at home. But nonetheless, I'm also well aware that it's going to be a tough match no matter what. A very well strung together team. I mean, just like us, champions of Turkey, as we're champions of Portugal. So I mean, that's pretty much it. My impression of both the group and BESIKTAS.
That's good stuff. Anything to add there, Christian?
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned some former players and managers. I mean, I'd say our closest relation is ongoing recent Valentin Rozier.
That's right.
Who, honestly, I'm going to be honest, and now that I tracked him more last season when he was more on a loan deal. Now that he's on a permanent, I'll be honest, I haven't followed him, so I'm not sure how he's performed this season. But yeah, like Danny said, obviously familiar with the club. Big name, in Europe, big name in Turkey, obviously. So, Quaresma was I was always a Quaresma fan, so.
I was gonna ask.
I remember some of his highlights there fondly.
Yeah, and he's an interesting player because he, of course, was a academy product of Sporting, but he kind of came up with Porto, right? Or he became famous with Porto. But I think this is worth noting. He's actually recently signed his son up with the Sporting Academy. Ricky, look out for Ricky Quaresma. He could be in 10 years the next big thing. And there's some other ties. Some of them not so great. Like Sinan was a player for us, and I know he kind of he was a youth product for you guys, but then came to fame rather with Benfica, which is even more, I would imagine, damaging to his reputation with you guys.
He's viewed with much more hostility. Quaresma is really not viewed with any hostility by Sporting fans overall. But Simo, I would say, is viewed with much, much more hostility by Sporting fans.
But then obviously, more recently with Valentin Rozier, that's a very positive exchange. I'm still, we got him in desperation last year. We just needed someone at right back. And it was all right, Sporting's third string right back, whatever. It's better. We were deathly afraid of this is coach favorite, who's sort of a blunderer of sorts, and he was pegged to play as our right back if Valentin Rozier didn't come in. So we were all just desperate for anyone, and then he turned out to be really phenomenal for us last season. A real bright spot on the season. Obviously, it was a great season for us all around, and it was in large part to guys like Rozier, Rashid Ghazal, who we didn't know what to expect, and they came in and just slotted in perfectly, and everything kind of came together. Last year was a shock for us. Now this year we're starting to have some expectations, but Rozier is a fan favorite with us, I will say. So, I mean, before I move on to more technical stuff, any thoughts on Rozier? Were you guys surprised he succeeded with us? Since he'd sort of fallen out of favor with you guys. Whose turn was Danny?
You can take that, Christian. You can take that,
Christian.
We always knew that he had ability. He just didn't seem to jive with the coach that was here, and it just it seemed like it wasn't going to happen for him here. But obviously, it didn't shock me that it happened for him somewhere else so much. That's always my opinion of him. And there are times in I think 2019 when he was exiled from the squad when we literally didn't have a right back, and there was just such this friction there between the coach and him that no one wanted to apologize or whatever, and it's just there's an opportunity for him right now, but it was ended up not working out. So I think it's for the better for everyone,
Yeah, no, and perhaps there's he came into a situation where he was really needed, and people were kind of trying to find positives in his game because the other option was such a feared one for us. So he came in and immediately took to him, and he became a fan favorite. And in the off season when he was trying to sort out his final paperwork or whatever it was, Galatasaray had tried to swoop in because he'd pretty thoroughly impressed last season, and he came out and he tweeted I'm a child of Besiktas, and then deleted it because obviously that's not a good negotiating tactic. His agent was probably shit, zip it, But he immediately I think his jerseys sold out quickly. As soon as he signed and everything, he's really endeared himself to the fans. So that's interesting that he was something of a problem child for you guys. Something perhaps for us to be weary of going forward. But I mean, we're in a position where I think if a bigger club came in, we kind of would have to sell him anyway. So we shouldn't get too attached to anyone these days. Anyway, moving on, and I'll go to you, Danny, and we're going to start talking specifics here. So Sporting starting 11. Like, first of all, what's it looking like at the moment? I know Pedro Gonçalves or Pote or whatever. Like he's injured at the moment, right? I don't know how long term that is, but beyond that, how's the starting 11 looking? Any thoughts on your newest transfers? Sarabia, I guess, is a bigger one. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so on Pote, since you mentioned him, does look like he's coming back. He has been back in training. Looks like he avoided a potential surgery on I think it's his left foot.
Nice.
So, which is a great timing and a great player to have back, because we are missing goals. And Pote last season was our goal scorer. I think he had, if I'm not mistaken, he was top goal scorer of the league with, I believe it was 23 or 24 goals. I believe it was 23 from right wing position. But he does come in a lot and all that. Yeah. Our starting 11, as it pertains, our manager Ruben Amorim, he loves playing with three at the back, three center backs. We would have wing backs. We did just lose Nuno Mendes, so our left spot is a little, I would say, vulnerable at the moment, because we don't have a solidified starting left wing back. We have Nuno Santos, who's been filling in, but he's more of a winger. We have Ruben Vinagre that we got from Wolves. That hasn't been panning out too well just yet, at least. And then we have Mateus Reis, who was a free transfer, came from another team in Portugal, Rio Ave, but off a really bad spell where he wasn't playing at all. Some sort of politics behind the team. Anyways, he's starting to finally find his feet. He was a bit of a meme at the club, but looking like he might very well play against you guys in the Champions League. So, and he's been doing well so far. In terms of our 11, our midfield is solidified. We have João Palhinha and now Mateus Nunes, both now Portuguese internationals.
And Palhinha is having a pretty solid season too, right?
Yeah, a phenomenal season, and he's coming off of a phenomenal season. I think and in my personal opinion, was one of the most important players from our campaign last season. Tough tackler, good with the ball. He had me, Christian, and the boys on our podcast. We're constantly talking about he has a banger in him. So it hasn't come yet, but there's been a few chances from 40 yards out that I'm convinced one of these days banging in top corner. But anyways, look out for a Palhinha banger. And then our front three,
knock on wood. It's not us.
Yeah,
we've got a young keeper too. We don't need that. We don't need that. Sorry.
No. And then our front three, we have Paulinho, who's pretty much our only striker that we got from our. I guess they're considered rivals from Braga for about 16 million, but some other shady negotiations in the background from that move, but a very expensive fee for a striker that isn't scoring a lot or isn't scoring at all. Really, he has 1 goal, 1 assist, and 3 yellow cards this season. So it's not a good look.
No.
We just did get Sarabia, and like I said, Pote might be coming. Hopefully, he's coming back from injury. If not, we have the likes of Jovan Cabral, a young inconsistent player, but on his day, he's lights out. We can even play Tabata on the wing, a young Brazilian winger that can also play as a number 8.
Nice.
And there's another winger, Tiago Tomás, who can rival Paulinho for that striking position, but many see him more as a winger. So we have some options off the bench for our front three. What
about Pedro Porro? Is he more of a wing back?
Yes, sorry. And then he's more of a wing back. Yeah, he's more of a right wing back. And problem with Porto, he's been fairly injured. I think he just got injured as well. Nothing too crazy, but for the Spanish side, hence why I don't think he was even on the bench for the Nations Cup final yesterday.
Ooh,
more of a wing back for sure, but he loves to press forward. Has a great cross in him. And if it's not Bodo, we have Ishgayu, who just came back from the club, also bought from Braga, but he's an academy player as well. So we have options. Our defense and our midfield especially are solidified. When going forward, I mean, right now we're a little thin, but we'll see. With Pote coming back, maybe that'll have Sarabia. Really, he's starting to gel with the squad, which is good because we do all know his quality. And then hopefully that'll get Paulinho, he's not a bad player by any sense, but he's not frustrating.
You're looking for him to sort of turn the corner, maybe, right? I mean,
exactly.
What are your guys' thoughts collectively? I don't. Either one of you can answer this on Daniel Bragança, right? He's kind of. I know some people like him and have high hopes for him. Others maybe not.
He's actually the perfect player to transition to because Sporting's been experimenting more with playing a more of a 3-5-2 as opposed to a 3-4-3. Mm-hmm. And the last game that they played, they started with the 3-5-2, but against Mateus Nunes and Pelinha as a midfield triangle, and it looked pretty good. But against a lot of the play offensively ran through Bragança. He's great at, just like switching the play, switching the point of attack, very technical. We'll just like nutmeg guys and stuff. He's very technical, very talented.
And young too,
Young too as well. He's 21, or actually just turned 22 because he's no longer eligible for the Portugal U21s. That's how I know he just turned 22. So the problem that we ran into against Ajax a little bit and against Dortmund especially was we were overrun in the middle with only two midfielders. Even despite Pelinha covering like 1.5 people's turf, it felt like we were undermatched. So I mean, again, I think that for the Champions League games especially, the three midfielders make sense. Sporting's thinnest up top, Paulinho, and Pote is kind of like a free range player, so I could easily see him starting up top in like the free range role of like the 3-5-2. Nice. I like Bragança, and I think that formation works best in these Champions League games for sure. Sporting was in a bit of a poor run of form, and the injection of Bragança and the three midfielders seems to have upped the play a little bit. So I wouldn't say why they wouldn't keep rolling with it.
Nice. Yeah, he seems to be sort of like a cult. He has a cult following, right, Bragança? And I think a lot of fans, and I happen to be one of them for Besiktas, you like to see those younger kids come in and you want to give them a bit of a leash and like see, you want to give them their run, and because like ultimately, I don't know if you guys are exactly in the same position as us, but like there's a lot of money to be made in playing these younger guys and like gaining the attraction of some of the larger leagues out there. Like, certainly we're in dire need financially of those kinds of developments, so I don't know. I tend to always enjoy seeing younger guys come into the lineup and perform. I don't know.
For sure. We have a lot that could be poached. I would say Gonçalo Inácio is another one, center back. He's 21 as well. I mean, it's clear for any scouts watching that he's a top center back, so we're not going to be able to hold on to him forever,
Yeah. All right, next up, and I guess we'll go back with Danny on this one. We've kind of already covered strengths and weaknesses for the most part by analyzing individuals, but let's talk about form, because we haven't talked about that yet. And your guys' form is quite similar to ours, right? You're in third place, though, just like us, by the way. Just like us, I don't think you're probably really disappointed with third place. It's not like you're dropping points. It's just that the season's young, and you got a couple other solid performers so far. Is that about right, Danny?
Yeah, no, I'd say you hit spot on. I believe we only have. Now I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 draws. Let me just quickly look. I believe it's 2 draws in the league. So one is to Famalicão, which is our sort of our kryptonite, really, because since they've come up from the second division, we have yet to get a win against them in the league. And then our other draw was against Porto, which was a little only disappointing because in the first half we could have been easily up 3-0, and then one of their only shots on target went in. It was a banger from them, to be fair, but But nonetheless, I mean, our form. These last few games have been tough. I mean, we've stolen a few games just right at the end. Against Estoril, it was a last-minute penalty. Against Marítimo, it was a last-minute penalty. Estoril, we also won 1-0 off a penalty. So it's been a tough few games for us these last 2-3 weeks. But I mean, the best thing is that we got the 3 points, and so we're amongst it. We're 20 points. In third place, tied with Porto, and then 1 point right now off of Benfica, who just lost last weekend. So, it's still young. There's still so much to fight for. But yeah, we're happy. So we're content, I should say. We're content with what we're doing, and we're on course for another title challenge at least.
Nice. Yeah, I saw your guys. I've sort of scouted you a little bit as best one can, here in New York. But I've checked out highlights. I've watched some of the extended highlight clips and stuff. You guys look solid. And yeah, I mean, you're still undefeated, right? You can't do that much better than and we've similarly we've dropped one match, but we've just been ravaged by injuries. So, we're still pretty content with where we are, and especially because everyone's coming back post international break. So yeah, I think we're both as clubs ready to sort of push into this next quarter of the season probably and make our push for the championship. And obviously we're hoping for the best in Europe. Christian, so now I guess if there's anything you want to add to his thought to Danny's thoughts on your guys' form, go for it. But then beyond that, this is sort of the wild card question, because we've sort of answered most of these questions in a roundabout way. What should Besiktas fans know about Sporting and the club's history? Things that make you proud of the club, high points for you domestically or in Europe, in your time as a fan. And this one I'll bounce back to you, Danny. It's kind of a weird question. I'm putting you on the spot, so I don't know if you have a pre-prepared answer for this one, but go for it, Christian.
Sure. I think Danny covered our form perfectly. I would say, as Sporting fans, what makes us proud. I mean, I would say that there are a couple things that make us/me proud. First, definitely what makes me proud is not only the football team, but we follow all the sports of Sporting, the basketball team, the handball team, the hockey team, the ladies team, the ladies futsal, the ladies soccer team, everything. And Sporting is top in Portugal, consistently for so many of these sports that many people would consider second rate or, not caring. Most people don't care about them at all. Sporting fans are known for caring about these sports more than the fans of any other team, such as Benfica, Porto, who do often challenge us in many of these sports for titles, but their fans are not engaged in the same way that we are on average. Nice. What else? Definitely, we were champions last season after 19 years. We have some other titles sprinkled in there, such as league cups and cup titles over the years, but never the league title evaded us for close to 2 decades. I would say that would have taken a toll on a weaker fan base overall. But for some of those years that were hard, the base of the club never went anywhere. And when you just as far as looking at Portugal and the top clubs, this is actually a relevant topic because we're entering an election season at Sporting right now, so the politics are especially hot. But just the engagement level of the average Sporting fan in the club's internal and external affairs. You'll probably have, if your fans or follow international news and stuff like that, the president of Benfica was recently arrested for his decades of corrupt dealings. Porto president, one of the biggest refereeing bribery scandals in Portugal, went down. He was a central player in that. Somehow he still remains the president to this day. Portugal has been synonymous with a lot of these types of corruption scandals. And for the most part, Sporting has avoided a spotlight in that way. So that's definitely a point of pride for me as well. I don't know if Danny has any extra ones to add.
Real quickly, just to piggyback on that, what is the name of the notoriously shady agent from Portugal? Jorge Mendes? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind. We mentioned the Portuguese corruption, all that, and he had his hands all in Turkish football for I don't know, a good decade plus too. So we know, we've been there. We have a lot of.
He impacts everyone. He impacts everyone. That guy, at this point, he's an international superstar, you could call him. He's everywhere, making money off of everybody.
That's right. Infamous, at least. Danny, anything to add there?
No. Christian said everything perfectly. I would just add on our other various sports, not only do you dominate Portugal, but we also have some European trophies in there in our futsal and our roller hockey team. So, as Sporting fans, we love the club itself, not just the football team. That's just to re-emphasize what Christian was saying. Nice, of course. No, that's cool. And in Turkey, that's quite common also. Besiktas also has good. I don't know. There's an NBA player, Alperen, who's playing for the Rockets now, who came from Besiktas. We also pride that stuff.
Turkish basketball teams are very, very, very good.
That's a thing. I mean, I'm an NBA guy.
Portugal has a long way to go to get to that level. But Sporting is only in their third year since restarting the baskball team, so
here's a
long way to go.
Real wild card question: Are you guys NBA fans? Who are you?
Yeah.
Danny, you've got to be a Raptors fan, right?
Yeah, I'm a Raptors fan. Christian's a 76ers fan.
Okay, I was going to ask. I was worried you were going to tell me you were a Nets fan, because that. You'd be a legit one being in Jersey, but Philly is that's a much better fit. That's a real team.
Yeah.
I'm a Knicks fan, if you couldn't gather that. But huge.
The Knicks got back a little bit.
Yeah. I actually already have tickets to see the Knicks play Philly, so that's at the Garden. So.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Good game. NBA's right around the corner. I almost forget.
Yeah. Preseason right now. Kemba's at the Knicks right now. Am I wrong?
That's right. Yeah. We got Kemba and Fournier, both pretty serious, because we were rolling out with Elfrid Payton last year, so anything would be an upgrade. But so if he could stay healthy, that'd be awesome. Anyway, not to get off topic. That was just I thought, especially I have a friend from Toronto who's a huge Raptors fan, so I think that's a cultural phenomenon over in Toronto now, right?
Yeah. I mean, the whole country. I mean, any basketball fan in Canada, for the most part, will support the Raps.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see about this season. We're kind of rebuilding again, but I think we have a decent chance of making 7th, 8th. We can sneak in there, I think. But we'll see.
You guys have a really fun project, with all those young guys, but lots of talent. I'm sympathetic because my friend is a real diehard, and we talk a lot between us. But that's cool. Philly also, I have a lot of respect. That's a real rival with us too, not you know who over in Brooklyn over there.
Plastics.
Yeah, come on, man. It's funny because I've been wondering who follows the Nets, because in New York it's a real Knicks town. And the other day I was walking with my daughter down the street and her friends and talking to them, and I was talking about the NBA, and I was quizzing them. I was like, do you know who the original 3 teams were in the league? And this obnoxious little kid walks by and he goes, "Go Brooklyn Nets!" And totally threw me off, interrupted me. Everyone turns around looking at him, and I was like, "Oh, that's who the Nets fans are." And I had just seen this
in people that don't live in New York.
Yeah, exactly. And what a side note, I had just seen that same kid trying to videotape himself kicking pigeons. So. Whatever. Just saying. That's who likes the Nets. No, I'm kidding, obviously. Anyway, it was great to have you guys on the podcast. Thank you so much for enlightening all of us regarding Sporting, a great club. I'll say, going into this group, you guys mentioned it. It's not the quote-unquote group of death, but anything could happen in it. That's what's so exciting about it. And what's especially nice about it is that we're all clubs that notoriously have really great fan bases that are really passionate, and not the hooligans in the group, right? we have fairly respectful fans typically, and I think we've all had positive interactions so far in the Champions League group stage. I hope that continues, obviously, between our fans, but I can't imagine it wouldn't. Storied.
Yeah, there'll be there'll be probably a couple thousand traveling fans, but there's no bad blood between our clubs as far as the fan bases. I know they've got some beef over in Croatia, but in Turkey they're clear.
Nice,
yeah. As far as I know.
No, we're all good. Yeah, Turks respect Portuguese football a lot typically, because I think there's a lot of similarities between us. Yeah. Certainly, the big three clubs. You guys having that huge derby, right? I mean, we have the three Istanbul clubs, but lots of similarities.
For sure.
Lots of talent, sort of beginning to. I mean, you guys are more established in this regard, but spreading out through Europe and all that. So, that great stuff, guys. Thanks so much once again. Now, one last thing. Plug yourselves. I don't know if you have any writing projects or anything exciting like that, but certainly, your Twitter accounts. How do people follow you? Your podcast, etc. Free for all. I don't know who goes first. At this point, I've lost track.
Yeah. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube at Sporting 160, and Christian kills it. Christian and Sam, for the most part, they kill it on our Twitter account. It's Sporting 160_EN, where we put up a lot of the news up in English about the club, even opinions of certain events that are taking place on the club. We also are on SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, all Sporting 160EN. We're sort of affiliates. There's a Portuguese podcast, Sporting 160, in Portuguese, so we're like affiliates with them. Hence the 160EN part. But if you speak Portuguese, go and give them a listen as well, right? But yeah, for the most part, that's mainly where you can catch us. Chris, I don't know if I missed anything.
No, that's good. That's perfect, man. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, do you guys want to throw out your personal Twitters?
Sure. I'm at the Big Chris 69.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think mine is Danny Saldanha _ SALDANHA. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to showing up on your guys' podcast soon. For our listeners,
sounds good.
You can see my face, listeners. So
it's a rarity. We got a double header coming up.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And yeah, we'll figure out if it's like before or after the first match or whatever it is. But yeah, I look forward to it, guys.
Sounds good. Appreciate having us on, man.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too. Excellent. Just there you go. I think we are thoroughly informed as far as Sporting Club de Portugal goes. We know all we need to know. Thanks one more time to our guests, Christian, the Big Chris 69 on Twitter, and of course Danny Saldanha. DANNYSALDANHA with an underscore. Both really informative. Their podcast, the Sporting 160 English podcast, which is at Sporting 160_EN. Very informative bunch. And again, thank you to Joao Blanco of Os Panenka. Just great stuff for all around. And I think we can definitely say that we know all there is to know about our upcoming opponents for the Champions League. And so, that match is in 8 days, maybe 7 by the time you hear this. And I guess I would be remiss not to talk about the actual time of the match and all of that. We're going to be hosting Sporting in the first match on Tuesday, October 19th at 12:45 Eastern Standard Time. Check your local listings, as always. And so, that's all there is to say about that. And then, of course, we're going to play them again 3 matches later on November 3rd in Lisbon. But so let's now shift focus. By the way, I will mention that it's probably an advantage that we get to play them at home for the first match, because if we can get a result there, they'll be thoroughly dispirited, obviously, having lost their first 2 matches of their Champions League campaign. So that could be a vital match for us. Anyway, let's shift focus back to Turkey and back to the domestic Super League. Our upcoming match is going to be against Başakşehir. Istanbul Başakşehir is a side which has struggled mightily. I think that's almost an understatement if we're going to be 100% honest. They are currently, and let's sort of dig in to where they are in the standings right now. Başakşehir is currently in 15th place, having only won 2 matches and lost 6. No draws, 6 points, only -2 goal differential. So, it could probably be argued that that's not especially reflective of their performances so far, or at least they would suggest that. But, I'm not convinced. Their most regular starting lineup thus far has featured Volkan Babacan, 33-year-old Turkish goalkeeper who many will recognize. Ravil Tagir on the back line, 18-year-old Turk, supposedly with a very bright future. Evran, the Akman, was a huge fan. Also next to him is Leo Duarte, 25-year-old Brazilian defender, who I believe is on loan. Their right back is Carlos Ponk, Cape Verdean player. Lima, Brazilian 30-year-old, is on the left side of their defense. Mahmout Tekdemir in the back of their midfield, and up ahead of him is Yusuf Indiashimiye, a player from, I think, Burkina Faso, perhaps? Or Burundi, perhaps it is. He's 22, though. Another guy that I believe Evran was fond of. Next to him, Berkay Özcan, 23-year-old Turk. He's got a lot of attention, actually. On the left side of the midfield is Deniz Turuc, a name many will recognize. On the right side, Edin Fiska, 31-year-old Bosnian. And their striker this year is Stefano Okaka-Chuka, the Italian 32-year-old. He's actually scored 4 goals for them already, so that's a name to be weary of, perhaps. But so yeah, that's all there is for Başakşehir and the little preview of them. I guess we could kind of go into the head-to-head. Last season, we played them in the Cup and beat them 3-2 in March. That was the Cup final, I think, right? Was that the Cup final? I don't know why, but that March 16th sounds a little too early for that, but whatever. We beat them 3-2 in the Cup, but in the regular season, on March 12th, we beat them 2-3 on the road, and on November 21st, we beat them 3-2. So we beat them 3-2 3 times last season. Our first match at home, Atiba Hutchinson, Kyle Larin, and then Abubakar scored in the 72nd minute on a penalty. Gulbrandsen scored twice, almost bringing them back into the match, putting a lot of fear into us, but we held out. I remember thinking, that's the kind of game you have to win. The second match of the season, Kyle Larin opened up the scoring. Deniz Turuc leveled. Wellington gave us the lead again in the 68th. Demba Ba leveled. And then Joseph de Souza with a heroic goal in the 84th minute. And that would be a vital one for the season. But so yeah, 3-2 victories against Başakşehir last season. Let's hope for, a 3-2 victory. I'll take that. Why not? But so yeah, let's now quickly move on to one of my favorite news segments, and probably one of yours as well. We've got famous Besiktas Twitter personality Aaron Armstrong. I'm at Aaron E. Armstrong on Twitter, and I thought it was an important question this week. I asked him, I said, at the first quarter of the season mark, because that's where we are, I said, given late transfers, injuries, so I sort of set the table for it, is 17 points from 8 matches sufficient? 17 points out of 24 total. And did you expect more or less? And so I guess it's probably worth noting that along with those 17 points, right? How did we get there? We have 5 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss with a +8 goal differential, which is second highest in the league. So on that note, I put that question to Aaron, and here was his response.
Well, here's my answer to your question. Personally, I think it's a bit unfair to just assess it from a total points perspective. You have to be realistic. You have to approach it with a case-by-case basis, and I believe dropping only 7 points out of 24, given the circumstances, are just brilliant. It's great work, and yeah, of course, I mean, we would be even better if we didn't suffered any injuries, but given the season has a lot to go still, and considering our opponents will go through the same phase, go through similar phases, I mean, I think we've done quite well, and given that we've earned quite ready at the beginning of the season in terms of fitness when it comes to players. I mean, we had a lot of players joining in late, and we had a lot of players who were not fully ready or fully trained as for the summer training season, let's say. It was obvious that we would pick up the pace later on in the season, but this start is just brilliant for me. Definitely we've seen a lot of improvements from last season. I mean, first of all, okay, we didn't have any problems in relation to scoring last year. We were the team with the most goals and everything, but we had a lot of problems in defense. This season it looks like we've managed to sort it out, even though with all the people that we're missing, all the players that we're missing, we've still done a great job in terms of defense. We have the least expected goals given away, and we've in terms of statistics and analytics, we're doing a massive job with regards to the defense. But still, as I've said before, the early season is not what we're going to focus on. It's the long run, and once we fully become a unit with all the players joining in and with all the players being fit, I believe we can do a whole lot better, and hopefully that will come soon. It's a matter of process. It's a matter of trusting the process, as Joel Embiid would say. But yeah, given everything, given all the late transfers and injuries, 17 points out of 8 matches is a brilliant run, and we're not that far away from the top. We're pretty close, and considering they're playing close to their potential, our opponents, we can totally improve and leave a mark on the season and just cruise. But we really should start avoiding injuries and start avoiding these fitness problems. We shouldn't risk players, let me put it that way. We shouldn't risk players in that aspect because we have enough depth, I believe. We're just a bit unlucky in these 8 games, and given that we'll probably get eliminated from the Champions League, I almost say it right now, but it looks like it. By the looks of it, we're just gonna scrap that. Sergen probably thinks he should just wing it and see what happens. We will be entitled to focus on the league more, and that way we can perform better. And I believe, like, given the circumstances, what we should do at this point, country coefficient doesn't really matter. It's already a lost cause, and the dire financial status of the clubs makes winning the title even more important, given that you actually have a chance to qualify for the Champions League and be entitled to that competition prize, or whatever you want to call it. Phrasely, I'm not quite sure what to call it. Like, yeah, like tournament prize, I guess. Yeah, just for qualifying, the money you get from qualifying. But yeah, given that's the case, we're gonna look forward, and with everything we've got, we have to keep performing, keep fighting. This period also proved something important, that we have really promising youngsters, which is an amazing thing. I was really worried in the beginning that we had a lot of key players out, and I was worried that the replacements and the youngsters wouldn't be able to step up, but they've performed magnificently, to put it that way. And I believe that we earned a lot in this stressful period, even though we lost a few points. I believe in return we've won a lot on paper with players and with youngsters and what they can do in their confidence in themselves and everything. So the season still has a long way to go, and we shall see. Yeah, I mean, that's my way. That's my long answer to your question. Yeah, I think that's all I can say about it, and hopefully it will turn out to be great for us.
Excelente, very good. So yeah, just I co-sign everything Aaron said there. Again, follow him at Aaron E. Armstrong, AARONEARMSTRONG. And yeah, as always, follow us at Eagles_podcast. Follow myself at Sir_writes_a lot. Follow us on Instagram, Black Eagles Podcast, one word. Of course, we will be back soon. Our next match is on Friday, October 15th. We are on the road, but in Istanbul, against Başakşehir, 1 p.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. Check your local listings. We will be back, of course, after that match. And then we'll probably come back before Monday, because we want to get an episode in and give you all enough time to hear it before our huge match against Sporting Club de Portugal, which you are all very ready for and informed about. So, yeah, without any further ado, I'm just going to have to say, let's go BESIKTAS! Peace out, everybody. We'll be back soon. See you next weekend, folks.
Besiktas International hopes you enjoyed this program.